Last week I did a video soundproofing any windows for $20. Week before, soundproofing any doors for $20. And we saw some pretty impressive results of what you can do for just about $20. What can you do to a wall that can actually stop sound waves for just about $20? Well, there are a few ways that you can reduce some of the noise from going from room to room. And what's nice with these methods is that you can do it even if you're renting. Just like when I did the windows and the doors for $20, even if you're renting, you can still apply these methods. All right, so the first thing that you should do is look at the wall as a whole and look if there's any gaps or cracks onto the wall. One thing that people might not have thought of is the electrical outlets and light switches and also the baseboards. We'll start with the baseboards. If you rip out the baseboard gently, you might notice that there's quite a gap between the sheetrock and the floor. Now, you can close that gap. I used to recommend acoustical caulking, but now they've raised the price quite a lot of the companies, and it's more than $20. So if we're gonna stick below $20, regular silicone caulking is going to do the trick. It's going to seal that gap onto the floor. What's nice with this caulking is that it doesn't crack over time, letting noise bleed back into the room. And then you can just reinstall your baseboard. Next thing to look at is the electrical outlets and light switch. Pop off the face plates, but actually before doing that, go down and shut off the breakers, just for your own safety on those electrical outlets. Then come back and look between the sheetrock and the electrical box, and you might see a gap. Now what you can do, you can fill in that gap with some silicone caulking. Just make sure to only apply it in that gap, and if you over apply, just wipe off the excess so it doesn't interfere with anything electrical. And then reinstall the faceplate and you're good to go. And that's what you can do with just one simple tube of caulking, and just like the baseboard, do the same thing on the other side of the wall. Now, if the other side of the wall is unfinished, that's where it's going to be to your benefit, because then you can go behind the electrical box and actually use something called putty pads. You can buy these for $7, $8 each. These electrical boxes, they have holes because of the wires, but there are holes that has no wires in. You want to seal these gaps with the putty pad and just wrap it around the electrical box. Now, you don't have to worry about fire, because this type of material was actually meant for fire safety. If there was some type of fire that began in the electrical outlet, then this would slow it down, hopefully long enough for the fire to be put out and not go throughout the building. You can also use it to seal those holes for soundproofing. That will work a lot better than just sealing the crack around the electrical outlet. If you can go behind the wall, perfect. How much noise is coming through on the decibel meter? Let's add this putty pad to see if it actually blocks enough noise. Let's check it out. All right, let's turn that off. I'll try to squeeze in so you can see me putting the putty pad on. So what this will do, you can just wrap it around, and you can basically use two of these putty pads. You can put it on and then cut it, and then at least you'll have another one to use for another electrical outlet. Now look at that. Let's see if that blocks some noise. Now, this drywall is only 1/2 inch drywall. If you were going to soundproof the wall, I would recommend putting a 5/8 inch drywall, a little bit thicker, and it's not that much more expensive. So I suspect that it will make a difference of 1.5 decibels. Let's see if I'm right. So as you could see, 1 to 1.5 decibel decrease, which makes quite a difference when, even though it doesn't sound like much, it makes a difference. When you're spending a lot of money to soundproof the wall, you want to cover all those holes. Now, if you can't get behind the wall, if the wall is finished and you can't get to the electrical outlet box, then you're probably wondering, what am I going to do? I can't add the putty pads like you just did. One thing that you can do you can see the red right there. I think you have an idea where I'm going with this. You won't need as many putty pads, but you can put it directly behind the faceplate. Yeah, make sure there's no power there, because you might accidentally and kaboom. We don't want that. Now that you've sealed the holes, what else can you do to a wall that will only cost you around $20? One thing that you can do that won't cost you much is that you can rearrange the furniture in the room. I know it sounds pretty dumb, but hear me out. If you have the wall that you want to soundproof that is just open, exposed, and then you are putting furniture against the wall, you're putting canvases on the wall, and then what would work better is a bookshelf on the wall that you can fill with books, adding that mass. If you already have those things, then you can add it onto the wall. One good thing with a bookshelf, you can add blankets in between the bookshelf and the wall to muffle a little bit of the sound that would come in. That shouldn't cost you much if you already have the blankets. If you don't have the blankets, just try to get some second hand that costs you next to nothing. You won't be sleeping with them, you'll just be putting them behind a bookshelf. Another thing that you can do with those blankets is that you can just tack them onto the wall, but make sure that you fill the entire wall, because if it's only a portion of the wall, it's not going to be very effective. One thing that those blankets is going to do, it's going to act similar to acoustic foam or acoustic panels, where it's going to absorb the noise within the room. So if you're trying to soundproof from the noise outside coming in, adding blanket is not going to be as effective as adding those blankets on the other side of the wall where the noise is actually being made, because that noise is going to be absorbed into those fluffy materials all over the wall. Now, it's not going to be as effective as adding drywall onto the wall, but let's face it, blankets and drywall, they're different. But you can still use drywall if your budget is only $20. If you're doing it DIY and you have a small room for home office, recording studio, you can have those types of room in a walk-in closet. Those walls are quite small. You don't need that much drywall to fill in those walls. And drywall is going to block more noise than blankets. So if you have a small room, you might just be in luck. You could add some drywall and block more noise than blankets. One thing is that all these methods do apply on an exterior wall. The one thing is that most exterior walls, they have windows, they have doors. Before doing anything to the wall, look at the windows, look at the doors. If you're looking for a very inexpensive way to soundproof doors or soundproof windows for $20, video right there for the door, and then go watch window, and then soundproof your wall. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to leave a comment below if you have any questions regarding soundproofing. I'd love it to help. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, assuming you subscribed.